Hare Krishna to all of you. We have all gathered on this evening to see the synthesis of science and spirituality. A famous quote by Gandhi, which I'm paraphrasing, says that real progress, success, and development in a society can come about when science and spirituality go hand in hand and meet eye to eye. We wish to discover today in folk whether science complements spirituality, or if spirituality complements science, or are they like the North Pole and the South Pole? They never meet. This is our mission, this is our vision. On November 10th, the world celebrated the International Science Day. And at folk, we're all young men and women pursuing spiritual and scientific progress. And this session is going to be an enlightening one. We have wonderful academicians, researchers, and scientists joining us today for the panel discussion. Let's begin this event with an auspicious note with wonderful kirtans. I request the Perfect Harmony to take over the stage.
Good evening, everybody. Hare Krishna. Little more louder. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I hope everybody are excited for today's evening. And so today we'll be doing a small Sankirtana. So as you know, music also plays a vital role in our life, scientifically and spiritually. So let us all sing, dance, and enjoy together. Okay? Are you all ready to sing with me? A little more noise. Are you all ready to sing with me? Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Jayo Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Shri Radhe. Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Shri Radhe. Jayo Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Shri Radhe. Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Radha Krishna Chandra, Shri Radhe. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jayo Vrindavan Dham. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jayo Vrindavan Dham. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jayo Vrindavan Dham. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Shri Krishna Balaram ki. Jayo Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Jayo Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Jayo Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Jayo Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Nitai Gaurango, Gaura Hari. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Gurudev Prabhupada, Gurudev Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev Prabhupada, Gurudev Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Chandra ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Nitai Gaurang ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna. A loud Haribol to the Perfect Harmony Club. So with this auspicious beginning, now it's time to move on to the intellectual, serious, and more interesting stuff. I'm sure all of you have a few questions at least about science and spirituality. Probably you have many questions. So to facilitate you having an opportunity to connect with our panel today, there is a pad and a paper along with a pencil kept right beneath your seat. So if you have any questions, it could be regarding science, it could be regarding spirituality, it could be regarding meaning, purpose. If you have any such questions, please jot it down on that paper, on that piece of paper. And we have our volunteers who will come and collect it. You will have to pass it on to them. They will share it with us. The next 15 minutes is up for you. Put on your thinking caps and bring up all those questions that you might have had, or the different doubts that you might have had, or different thought processes that you might want to bring out, or different viewpoints that you want to see from science and spirituality. It could be those moments when you were in discussion with your family and you brought about a scientific point and it wasn't, you felt you couldn't put it in the right way, or it could be a point where you synthesized both science and spirituality and you brought out a good meaning and an understanding. So all those questions, this is the time for you, and it will be shared with the speakers today. So please go ahead. The next 15 minutes is for you. To give you a brief, I'm sure all of you would have seen the poster. So you could refer, and if you have anything specific to the branches that our speakers deal with, you could also write them down. Please utilize the next 15 minutes. We also welcome our online audience to share their questions. Welcome to this session as well. We are glad you have joined us. We will try to accommodate as many questions as possible that you share in the comments. You have the next 15 minutes to share your questions. Hare Krishna. We have our volunteers coming to all of you. We request you to please hand over the chits with questions. We have our volunteers heading over to your places. If you have noted down questions, if you had questions, you can hand it over to the volunteers. Our dignitaries will be arriving shortly, in a few minutes probably. We could also have a few more volunteers to collect the papers. Some of you can volunteer and help out. It's nice to see so many questions. Our team is going to have a tough time processing them. I'm sure you have a lot to write. Our team also has to collate them. You can put down any question that relates to today's topic on science and spirituality. It could be absolutely well thought, or don't worry about those dreamy questions that you have. We're going to process all of them. We're going to ruminate on them and find certain answers today. We will shortly have the dignitaries with us, and I request the audience to stand up when the dignitaries walk in. Hope you've all written your questions and passed it on. Okay. We are very happy to hear this. I think this ability to inquire, ask questions is an innate part of being a human, and this search has led us on a grand path. And today, we're going to discover whether these two paths meet somewhere, or are they completely separate, or are they in opposite directions. Can I see a show of hands? How many of you are from the science background? Pure sciences. Oh my God, it's a big crowd. Medical background. From the medical streams, some medicos there. Okay, the engineering streams, oh, big chunk here. Okay, the engineering streams. Okay, small set of people. We also have some youth guides from the same outlook. Okay, from the economics, social sciences, psychology, any of these fields? Okay, we have a few here. Okay, so I think it's going to be it's a beautiful confluence that all of us have come together, and I hope this discussion will open our eyes to a newer dimension of understanding that would make our life much more productive, much more happier, and purpose-driven. I think the whole MVT is looking at the gate, eagerly waiting for our guests. If a few more of you would like to share your questions, and you've written it but you haven't been able to pass it on to our volunteer, you could pass it to the last person in the row, and they will pass it on to the volunteers. I did see a few questions there. Very interesting. I'm sure all of you have interesting questions. I'm not being choosy here. But yes, the first one I saw was about whether spirituality is about the inner world and science about the outer world. And where do they teach us, and what level can they take us? So these kind of wonderful questions are present here. And there's a big surprise today about the dignitaries. I heard that they also have certain spiritual practices in their own lives. I mean, these are people of science, people who are practicing science, living science, sharing the science, benefiting the society, conducting research work, and they also feel that spirituality is what makes life complete. I'd like to hear from the audience. What inspired you to be here today? Be present for this event, Science and Spirituality. I think we've run out of space here in MVT. So, what inspired you? I would like to hear from all of you. Can a few of you share in the meanwhile? Friends, okay. That's a good answer. Yes, friends inspire us to be here. And we do good things with friends. Now, is that a spiritual choice or a scientific choice? I mean, we're going to figure that out. I'm not going to get into the details. Okay. Okay. What else inspired you to be here? A little louder. The title. Oh, okay. Both parts of the title or one part of the title? Both parts. How many of you say both parts? Okay. How many of you say science? It's all right. You could be open enough. We want this kind of an open discussion where we can bring out our doubts, we can challenge our thoughts, and that is the way of spiritual progress too. So, as human beings, it is part of us. And spirituality. How many of you? Only spirituality. Okay, we have a few of you. Okay, this is a wonderful confluence. I request the audience to stand and welcome our dignitaries with a round of applause. You can all be seated now. Thank you very much. I wish to invite Sri Chanchalapathi Prabhu, the Senior Vice President of ISKCON Bangalore and the Vice Chairman of Akshaya Patra Foundation, onto the stage. Sri Chanchalapathi Prabhu came in touch with Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON in the year 1980 and dedicated his life in the year 1984 while he was a student at the famous institute, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He has been serving at ISKCON for over 38 years now. I'm very happy to invite you for the panel discussion today, Prabhu. Now I'd like to invite our special guests and dignitaries onto the stage. I want to invite Professor Shri Chandrashekhar S. Jog. We request you to join us on the stage. I request His Grace Chanchalapathi Prabhu to please present and welcome him with a bouquet. Professor Chandrashekhar is a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He did his MTech and BTech, a dual degree from IIT Bombay in 1988, and completed his PhD from the University of Illinois. He has worked in areas of solid mechanics, continuum mechanics, and finite element methods. He has authored books on continuum mechanics and fluid mechanics. He has published around 58 journal articles and 70 plus publications and has guided multiple doctoral theses. He is part of the He is part of the Computational Nanoengineering project for the development of MEMS software, which is integrated into the finite element software package NISA, and also has worked on projects, software development, and scientific computing in nanoengineering and NPMAS, which is the National Program on Micro and Smart Systems. So this is between the year 2009 and 2013. Some of his recent publications are on the monolithic finite element formulations for magnetohydrodynamics, a finite element method for incompressible fluid flow in non-inertial frame of reference, and a numerical study of circular Couette flow with varying angular speeds, and monolithic formulations of electrochemical systems within the context of hybrid finite elements. So we are very happy to have you with us, sir, today. Next, we have with us Dr. Hema Sharma Datta. I welcome you onto the stage, ma'am. Dr. Hema is a senior professional researcher renowned for her innovative contributions in the field of health, wellness, and personal care. She comes with a rich experience of about 20 years where she has served in the industry in lead positions as head of R&D for wellness, personal care, cosmeceutics, and nutraceutics. Few of the top organizations where she has served are Zydus Wellness, Cadila Healthcare, Himalaya, Dabur, Imami, and BioVed. She holds a PhD in health sciences from the Pune University. Her doctoral research was reviewed and appreciated by the University of Mississippi. She has completed her MTech from Nagpur University and has been a consistent gold medalist throughout her academics. She has written various newspaper columns. Authored book chapters, and published scientific papers pertaining to the skin health, aging, and brain health. She has delivered various scientific talks in international and national forums pertaining to the technological evolution, natural organic products, natural trends, personal care, and green chemistry. She has been a member on the board of Research Progress Committee at Nirma University, Ahmedabad, a visiting faculty at Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, Pune, and is recently the member on the Board of Studies at Nagpur University for Science and Technology. She has a poetic pen, and she has published a book on poetic creations as well, which was appreciated by the writers and singers of the Bombay film industry. She is an avid adventurer who has done multiple expeditions to the Antarctica and got the certificate of Antarctic Discoverers. Also expeditions to the northern Himalayan regions and Far East India, the Seven Sisters, while participating in aeromotoring, gliding, sailing, snorkeling, zip lining, and aero slingshots. She has attended various courses on yoga and meditation and has learned graphology as a tool for mind mapping. She is working on a mission to integrate science, the modern, and the traditional viewpoints. So we're very happy to have wonderful guests with us today. So we have had, I thank the panel for being here again. I'm very fortunate to be with all of you. We have had the folk members sharing their questions on science and spirituality. We have collated a few of them, and they've also shared more questions. We will try to have as many as possible. And I would like to begin with an understanding from Professor Jog, because he comes from the science background. Professor, you're a man of science. You deal with experiments. We'd love to know what a day looks like in the Indian Institute of Science as well. Do you see some space for spirituality in your life? And do you have any such spiritual practices in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, okay. So are you able to hear me? Yeah, fine. Okay, fine. Okay. Well, okay. So as far as the day at the Indian Institute of Science, my work day mostly consists of lectures and research. So basically, we teach like a couple of courses, let us say. So I teach solid mechanics, continuum mechanics in the department. So the day would be like, let's say, some lectures in the morning. And let us say then we guide lots of MTech students or PhD students, and so mostly going through their work or going through their papers or discussing things with them. So much time is spent in that, or sometimes we have to conduct interviews for new PhD students and so on and so forth. So mostly the work day is all about this one. And also, as I said, that the book, I mean, so that is another thing that I have been involved in, that writing the book. So trying to come up with a new edition, and that takes up a lot of my time also. As far as the personal thing is concerned, that so in the mornings I do a little bit of chanting, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Yes. And then I try to read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada's commentaries also. Yes, although it's okay. I don't wish to portray myself as a very spiritual person, but I am trying my best. So yeah. But anyway, so I am trying, as I said. So that is about this. And then his next question was that what brought me to spirituality. So actually, I have been interested in the spiritual field for a very long time. See, whenever we talk about science or engineering, we are just studying dead matter, correct? So finally, we are conscious human beings. And so always the question is that, is there a higher purpose to life? All these questions naturally arise, right? And so I got interested in these questions when I was about 25 or so. Actually, so very paradoxically, when I was in India, I was least interested in these things. And then when I went to America, suddenly I got interested in these things. And then I started reading a lot of philosophy books. So I actually studied almost all of Advaita Vedanta books, or Jainism, Buddhism, any philosophy that you can think about. I have read it, and I've tried to understand. So, like the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, for example, I've read the full thing, or Ramana Maharshi's, the life of Ramana Maharshi. So at a very young age, I got interested in this. Yeah, that is there a higher purpose? Is there more to life? Because generally, we'll see that life on earth is very miserable. I mean, maybe many of you are young and maybe you have not faced. You may have faced, you may not have faced. I'm not sure. But I mean, so you naturally tend to ask these questions. That is this all that there is to life, or is there something deeper? Is there a deeper meaning in life? Is there a God who has created this world? All these questions will come to your mind, right? And then there are strong arguments for and against the existence of God. And so, perpetually it's like a struggle for me to see and figure out, that what is the reality behind these things. So that is what got me interested in all of this. Yeah, so thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Jog. It seems we also have a professor in philosophy.
No.
Okay. So my next question is to Dr. Hema. Do you feel that there is an existence of higher power, as we would say, or the modern terminology? And could you please share whether you believe in this higher power or higher existence, and it's also a question about feeling, because thoughts and feelings. Do you have certain experiences that gave you the certain conviction that you have today?
Hare Krishna, I'm audible. So, do I believe in higher power, or if we have to simplify, do I believe in God? The answer is a big yes. And why? There are many incidences, both on the personal and professional front, but something which still remains very fresh in my memory, and I would like to share with everyone. This dates back to 1990s. That was the time when I had met with a potentially fatal car accident, wherein I was run over by a car, and right from my ankle to my knee to femur to hip joint to ribs to clavicle to my face. Everything was fractured. So when I was brought to the ICU, the doctors were not sure. First, I'll survive, and if I survive, will I be in the full physical ability, or I'll be challenged on certain fronts. I am told that that time I was unconscious, but I was able to hear the conversations which were happening in the ICU. And I could hear a lot of panic and fear, both from the doctor's side, a lot of crying from the relative's side, that she'll be disabled for life, if at all she is alive. And a day before that, we had, along with my parents, I had visited some very famous temples of India, and I had done puja there. So there was all the more, antagonism that, oh, she did all that puja and still she met with this. So I was hearing all that, and there was that deep faith inside which told me that, why they all are worried. Nothing is going to happen. Everything will remain the way it is. But I was not in a position to speak. There was a lot of swelling on the brain. So I didn't even know where I am, but I could only hear. That hearing capability was there. I could not be operated upon immediately because there was huge blood loss and bone marrow loss, and there is a condition called fat embolism, wherein the fat globules from the bone marrow, it starts blocking the brain, the neurons. And finally, it leads to the death of the person because a lot of other functions in the body are affected. But after a long gap of about 3 weeks, as things started looking a little positive, the doctors decided to operate on me. And some of the best surgeons of India were working on me. And it was a long surgery where there were a lot of plates, nails, and rods were to be inserted. Post-accident, I was again, there was 3-4 weeks of gap before I could stand up and start ambulating. And after those 4 weeks with a lot of external support, I was made to stand. And slowly the ambulation part started. After that, there are different levels of external support. So first you walk with walker, then you walk with crutches, then tripod stick. And then the day arrived when I could walk without support. And that day when I went to meet the doctor, he was crying in amaze. He said, this is something which we never expected. With all our expertise, when we took you to the operation theater, we had told all your relatives she'll never be able to walk again in her life. And here we see you walking without support. So I said, then what was it that was done? So they said, we only told everyone to pray. And we also prayed. So I said, and what makes you believe that? He said, there is a bigger power than the medical science. So after that, it was not only ambulation, but all the adventures which you just talked, they were after that. Oh. So the doctors were more amazed. So I guess this is one of the incidences which remains still very fresh, that there is a power beyond science, bigger, greater, and it responds. Coming to my professional life, I would say we have been into making a lot of products, and the product formats has been emulsions and suspensions. So there is a lot of interfacial chemistry and physics that comes into play. However, there is one natural emulsion which still amazes us, and that is milk. With all our technology, with all our expertise, all knowledge of ingredients, we have still not been able to make an emulsion which is as stable as milk, as nutritionally dense as milk, and even taste-wise as tasty as milk. The other thing is, milk as an emulsion, it's a finished product in itself, and then it acts as a raw material for other products. So even those products are equally nutritionally dense. So this kind of knowledge, still, with all our expertise, it is not there. And after you make every product, in the end, there is zero waste. So that is something which I guess now in the industry, it is coming as a trend, but this was already designed. So I often get awestruck with the chemistry and physics that has been designed and it's there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are very thankful that you could share such a personal instance in your life. I think it's inspiring to see how even a doctor can believe in God and how that transformation comes by. My next question is to His Grace Chanchalapathi Prabhu. Prabhu, questioning has been an innate ability, an innate part of being a human. And we say, or the general idea is, it has led to two paths. One is science and spirituality. And sometimes there is criticism upon each other, and we are trying to bridge that today and understand what's positive and what values are added. So this is one of the notions that some people hold, some proponents hold in the society. From eradication of smallpox to asphalt roads to mobile phones to internet, science is credited for making people's lives easier. Whereas religions are credited for holy wars, discrimination, and even seen as a political tool to control the society. So what are your views on this, Prabhu?
Yeah, it's a fact that in history there have been wars which were actually because of some religious beliefs of different kinds of people. And definitely there are instances of politicians taking advantage of these things. I can think of an example that Srila Prabhupada often gave. He said, if the eye has developed cataract, you have to operate and remove the cataract so that the eye can function well. Not that you pluck the eye and throw it out. So if there is a misunderstanding of religion, misapplication of religion, misuse of religion, we should address that mistake or the cataract which has covered true religion, not to throw religion out of it. It's a fact that human beings, for power, for becoming, winning an election or whatever, might have used in wrong ways, which has resulted in, like you said, wars. But we are talking about spirituality, we are talking about religion, it's in its pure form. And there is place for that. And I would think that it is an unfair accusation that religion has led to wars, and religion has also given purpose, meaning, peace, tranquility to countless people for centuries. Where is all the good, benign effect of religion gone in this analysis? I've also had a similar example. Once I was in some part of the world. There was a man who was sitting next to me, and he looked at me up and down, and he said, "Are you a monk?" And I said, "Yes, I'm a monk." And then he said, I was working for the US Army, and we studied a lot of history in the army. And a lot of wars happened because of religion. And so I became an atheist, he said. And he was sitting next to me for the next 2.5 hours, and so I had good opportunity to talk to him. So people sometimes come to this kind of radical conclusion with not enough proper information. That is what is very wonderful about Srila Prabhupada. What is very wonderful about Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada presents spirituality or religion or philosophy or understanding of God in a very rational, in a very logical framework, and develops the whole idea, and it's very, very sound. This is how Vedic literatures have presented these ideas. And Srila Prabhupada is presenting that in a more modern context, in a more modern language. So, we should also see the other wonderful aspects of religion and spirituality which would not be available if we had not pursued spirituality seriously and carefully. That's what I would say.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. I think it's people's attitude, and probably they're at loggerheads, and sometimes they take the context to religion or even spirituality. I do have a follow-up question, since you spoke about a meaningful explanation and what Prabhupada presents, and you've been a monk for so many years. How would you define spirituality?
I think the word spirituality comes from the word spirit. There is a reality that is beyond the material reality that we all experience readily from the senses. This is another example I can give about Srila Prabhupada. Very nice explanation. Prabhupada was once had a discussion with one reporter, an American reporter, and she said something like this. And Prabhupada said, say for instance, somebody very close to you is dead, and you are all lamenting, and you are all crying that he is gone, he is gone. Who has gone? The body is still there. And interestingly, she said, the spirit is gone. And then Prabhupada said, do you see the spirit? And she said, no, I don't see the spirit. So, there is a science, there is something that is vital which has gone in a dead body, which when it was present was doing wonderful things. Someone could be a singer and who could sing and hold 30,000 people in a stadium, evolved by his talent. But if the person dies, then everything ends. So I'm sitting here now, for instance, I'm talking, I'm gesticulating, I'm trying to convey something to you. If I die now, I can't speak anymore. And then we just try to dispose the body, right? That's how we start saying. We have to somehow take the body, bring the body here. So what is it? That important principle which was animating the body, that is the spirit. And there is just like we understand matter, like we heard about Professor and we heard about Dr. Hema, how they have spent years and years studying matter. And still they say there are many things about matter which we have not understood. So in the same way, there is another realm of reality, a domain of reality called the spiritual reality. And it requires serious study. There is a certain methodology that science has to study matter. In the same way, in our country, our great sages had developed a methodology for studying spiritual reality. And so if we apply ourselves seriously and carefully, earnestly, like there are eminent people who have applied their minds and intelligence to an earnest study of matter, in the same way, if we study spirituality in a systematic way, there is understanding, there is more appreciation of the spiritual reality and the dynamics of the spirit, and all of that genuinely constitutes spirituality. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who mislead in the name of spirituality and religion. We see that happening in our country. God-man was involved in so-and-so scandal and such thing. Can't help it. That's the nature of the world. But that does not mean there is no genuine spirituality. Just like sometimes you come across a fake note. The presence of fake note does not preclude that there is no genuine note, genuine currency. So in the same way, there is genuine spirituality, and our Vedic literatures and our acharyas have presented that, and we must pay careful attention to it for our benefit.
Thank you for summarizing such a difficult topic. I was searching the internet for a definition of spirituality, and I came up with many, but most of them didn't include this word spirit at all. So thank you very much, Prabhu. Professor Jog, you've been a man of philosophy. You've been a man of a lot of papers and research materials as well, and an author. So I wish to know, do you feel that there is a God behind the work you do and behind this world? And how do you present that, or how do you conclude that?
So let me elaborate on this. So the arguments for or against God are, both of them are very strong. Let me put it like that. So first let us analyze what are the arguments against God. Okay, so suppose, we define God as something which is omniscient, omnipotent, and very loving, things like that, right? Then the question arises, why is there so much misery in the world, correct? So that is the first question and so many religions also reject. Like for example, Jainism, they accept a soul, but they don't accept the existence of a God, for example, right? So there are lots of arguments against this one, right? But let us keep those arguments aside for the moment, and let us now talk about the existence of God. So is that okay if I elaborate on this, on the intelligence, whatever I've talked about, that shall I elaborate on that? Yeah. So today then actually I'm going to talk about various proofs for the existence of God. Okay, so as I said that the stuff about against God, that I will talk about later. Okay, so let's just keep that aside for the moment, and let's just talk about what are the arguments that can be given for the existence of God. Okay, so today what I'm going to talk about is that there is an intelligence, behind the creation, and so I'm going to talk about that today. So for example, if I tell you that Krishna lifted, Govardhan Parbat, or he killed the snake Kaliya, then you will say, no, this is just mythology. I don't believe in mythology. So these are just made up stories. How come, when Krishna was there 5,000 years ago, why is he not there today? Then today we will have evidence. We have video cameras, we have this and that, and then we can record it. At that time, there is no evidence as such, right? And so why should I believe this? Even Superman does all these things. That is what you will say. So today I'm trying to give you more convincing reasons, okay, for why there is an intelligence behind the world. Okay, so as a scientist, so basically I am going to talk in a language that you understand. Okay, so which is the modern generation's language. It is not the language of somebody who is grown up on faith and who believes in the scriptures. So if you believe in the scriptures, no problem with that. But many of you may not be convinced by that. So today I'm going to talk about the intelligence that is there in the world. Okay, so the first statement that I will make is that everything that you see in the world is magical. Okay, so I will start off with that statement. Okay, that everything that we see in this world is magical. Okay, and it's just that we have got used to taking things for granted. Okay, and that is why we don't see this magic. Okay, so let me start with the most simplest of examples. So even if you take an ordinary tree, okay, that is magical actually, if you see. So suppose if you take the seeds of an apple, okay, and you just leave them on your kitchen sink, they will not grow into a tree. You put it into water, it will not grow into a tree. Okay, only when you put it into a soil, then something happens, right? It's a non-living thing. Remember, an apple seed is a non-living thing. Something happens, right? It senses. There is a mechanism that it senses that, okay, I'm not in the water. So, I mean, you will see that it is surprising that even when you put it in water, it does not germinate. It's only when you put it in soil, right? So you can think that what happens is now that outer covering will dissolve, and then it will sprout, and then the roots will grow and things like that, right? So then after that, the entire blueprint for how that tree is going to grow is encapsulated in that tiny little seed, right? The whole makeup is already there in the seed, that how the tree is going to branch out, what are going to be the, I mean, even the fact that it is going to produce apples and not oranges, that is already encoded in the seed itself when when it starts germinating, right? And the whole thing will regenerate, so the tree grows, then the apple, then again it seeds, again it will grow. It's a self-replicating mechanism. Okay, so even if you consider the roots, okay, so actually I don't know how many if you have just tried digging the earth, it's incredibly hard. You will start sweating in 5 minutes. Okay, the earth is, I mean, if you take a crowbar and try. Now you are trying to talk about very tiny little roots, which are, I mean, when it's a small tree, it's very tiny roots which are penetrating into this hard earth, okay? And they are going, growing. Then when it senses a rock, for example, right, it will know that, okay, this is an obstacle, I will go around it, okay? And then it will go around it, and finally it grows to such a level that you can tie an elephant to it and nothing will happen to it, right? After some stage, right? So basically so what I'm trying to get at is that there is some intelligence in the design of even a simple tree, okay? And even today, actually, we don't understand how the nutrition is carried from the root of the tree to the top, okay? So we have all kinds of theories, osmosis, this, that, all kinds of theories are there, but nobody has figured out. See, some of the trees will be 100 meters, or whatever, some huge height, right? Especially in America and all that. You can even, like, if you cut out a part of that, you can drive your car through that. It's so big. The trees are so big. Okay, so how does the nutrition now go from the base to the top? Okay, so there is a mechanisms, and I mean, I'm not even talking about the complicated mechanisms like photosynthesis and things like that. Okay, so that is just, I mean, I'm just starting off with a simple tree. Okay, now let us go to life itself. Okay, so you will find that life is permeating the earth right from the bottom of the ocean to so land, of course. So you go to the bottom of an ocean, there is life. You come to the land, there is life. You go to the even 10 kilometers up into the atmosphere, there are microbes and so on. Okay, so let us start with the creatures that are living in the deep. Okay, so the deepest part of the oceans are about 11 kilometers, okay? That is like 11,000 meters. So just use your formula, whatever in your engineering you must have learned. what is the pressure there? It is H rho G, okay? So H is 11,000 meters, right? Rho is 1,000, correct? And then G is 10, approximately, roughly 9.8, but 10. Let us take 10, okay? So that makes it 10 raised to 8, okay? 10 raised to 8 Newton per meter square, pascals, okay? So that is 1,000 times the pressure that you are experiencing right now, 1,000 times. So now imagine that if you put a human body into an ocean, okay, how deep can it go? It can go maybe at the most 1 kilometer to, not even 1 kilometer. I think maybe the deepest dives maybe a few hundred meters. After that, I think the blood will start, some process happens, and basically divers' legs and all will go contorted when he comes up. Okay, so anyway, let's not talk about that. So what I'm trying to say is that now there are creatures that will survive 10 raised to 8 pascals. Okay, so you can imagine what is the kind of pressure. So your body will explode, or sorry, not explode, but get crushed, or your lungs will explode rather, so because the pressure is so immense that finally everything will just get crushed. But there are creatures that will live 11 kilometers below the ocean. So what I'm trying to come up with is that there has to be an intelligence. Okay, so I'm going to talk about evolution. So just wait for a minute. So I'll come to Darwin's theory of evolution in a minute. Yeah, so that used to be Srila Prabhu's favorite topic. Anyway, I'll come to that. So, yeah, so I'll come to that. Anyway, but let me give some more. Examples, right? So basically, the mechanism by which these organisms survive at 11 kilometers is completely different than your body. So it is designed, the body is designed in such a way that it can survive at those depths. Now imagine that there is no light also there. I mean, I don't know if you have ever gone scuba diving or something. Just go a few meters below the water surface, you will not see anything at all. I mean, the light just permeates or percolates up to like a few meters. That's it. After that, it is all dark. Now you imagine that how these fish, maybe they are sharks or blue whales or whatever, the really deep sea creatures, how they must be seeing their prey or how they must be sensing it. Because as I said, there is no light. How do you even see, right? In a deep part of an ocean, how do you even see anything, right? So there are these creatures that survive, survive for many years, whatever, through their entire lifespan. They grow to this huge, like blue whales will grow to maybe, I don't know, 100 meters, whatever it is, some huge lengths and things like that, right? And they are able to sense the prey, they are able to reproduce, they are able to carry out all their functions at such immense depths, where there is enormous amount of pressure which will just crush an ordinary body, okay? So their organs, so basically they are designed, such that there are no air pockets in there, it's basically like just flesh or things like that. And so it's a very complicated design that we are talking about, okay? And yet they survive, okay, in all this. So there are creatures which will have like a lamp, so it will just open up like this, and it has, these are algae type of thing, which will generate light. And so then they can see in that, now I'm talking of the bottom of the ocean, these are creatures which will open up like this, and there's a lamp like a hood. They will open it like this, and then they will, that light will come. But this is from some algae or some microbes. This is like a self-generating light, not the light from outside now. Okay, so then they can see this, and then they can, whatever, they can either their prey or whatever it is, whatever function they want to do. So that is the thing, okay? So that is another thing. Then if you take water, right? So if you take the density of water now, so you will see that what is denser, right? Ice or water? So many of you, I mean, if you have not studied science in detail, you will say ice, but that is not true, right? So actually the density of water is maximum at around 4 degrees, okay? So now imagine that suppose if ice had been denser, then what would have happened, right? So you take an ocean, then what will happen is that the water will start freezing from the bottom up, because now the ice is heavier, correct? So suppose if the ice is denser, then what will happen is that it will start freezing from the bottom up, right? And then there is no insulation. And then what will happen is that the entire ocean will freeze. So all the aquatic life that you see today, that will not be there, correct? Because so basically what is happening is that the ice layer is floating on the top actually. And then all the life is existing below that, okay? So I mean, so all I'm trying to say is that in every aspect, if you really think about it, if you analyze it, there is so much tremendous intelligence in every single aspect of life. And if you don't see that, I'm sorry, you are blind. I mean, blind in the sense you have eyes but you can't see. I'm sorry to say that. Or your intelligence is not developed.
It's like they're at the bottom of the dark ocean.
Yes, right. So let me continue. Okay, so now if you take even a smallest insect, like a dragonfly, okay, for example, right? Now a dragonfly can fly. It can fly forward. Okay, it can fly backward. Okay, it can hover. It can fly upside down. You know, whatever combination that you want, a dragonfly can fly that. Now, are your aeroplanes able to do that? I don't think so, right? So today, at least, maybe they may be able to hover a helicopter, right? But you will not see so the mechanism of a dragonfly is so complicated, you will not be able to imagine it. It has 4 sets of wings, okay? And they are all flapping in different directions and at different frequencies and at different speeds to be able to do that. You know, so sometimes it is going forward, sometimes it is going backward, sometimes it is going upside down. You know, it is doing all kinds of weird things, okay? So I'm saying that even in the smallest insects, you will see an intelligence in the design of that insect. I'm not claiming that the insect itself has intelligence. I'm saying that there is an intelligence that has designed this insect. So again, I'll come back to the evolution that automatically this happened. I'll address those aspects later. Now, recently there are sea slugs. Okay, so these sea slugs, what they found is, so this is a very, very recent discovery. Okay, this is appeared in Scientific American, so you can go and check it out on your Google. So what happened is that the head of the sea slug got severe. That means cut off. Then she was, I think, a Japanese lady, a Japanese researcher. So what she thought is that the poor thing is will die. Because once your head is severe, then how can they stay, right? Then to her amazement and to the amazement of everybody who is watching, what happened is that the head started growing the remaining part of the body, okay? And the whole thing regenerated. So the sea slug did not die, basically, okay? It just regenerated its entire body with all the organs, and it became fully functional, or almost 90% functional. And after that, you know, so basically it started living its life as if nothing has happened, you know. So now this sea slug is one example. Then there are examples of insects, okay? Even if you cut up an insect into 20 different pieces, okay? So this is real science that I'm talking about, not my own made up fictional science, okay? So there are insects that if you cut up into 20 pieces, they will regenerate. Each part will regenerate, okay? So this is, this is something so fascinating, because I used to think that the moment you cut up something means it will die. That's the way I used to think. But this is called as regeneration. So this you can check out, many of these things on whatever, your this one and so on. So what I'm trying to say is that if you keep your eyes and your intelligence open, then you will see so much magic in the way things are created. It's just that we are caught up in our own professions and we don't think about it. We just take it for granted. This happens automatically, that happens automatically. So that is the way. So now there are microbes, okay, which can survive. There are microbes in Antarctica or these places which have survived for 10,000 years. So they are just frozen there. And the moment you expose them, they are like alive. So this is also unbelievable. That just look at the lifespan. Our lifespan at the most maybe 120 years, something like that. These are staying for tens of thousands of years. So so I'm saying there are so many things. So in our bathroom, we have tiles, and then I see these tiny little ants. They are like sub-millimeter. They are like 1/10 of a millimeter, let us say. Okay, these are tiny ants which will comfortably run vertically on the tiles. Okay, now these tiles are very smooth. So then actually I tried to look up on the internet that what are the mechanism by which it does that. So it says that they have some clawed feet, and it pumps out some liquid, and then again it withdraws that liquid. But you know, by the time it does that, it will just maybe go barely 1 millimeter, you know, by the time it executes all these so many complicated mechanisms. But if you see, it just effortlessly goes, you know, just very casually, you know, as if just like we walk casually on the floor, they will, you know, run on the vertical wall. And then there are lizards and all which can go even vertically on the ceiling, right, like upside down, right? So in spite of the pull of gravity. So you may say, okay, there is suction pad and there is suction and all that, you may say, fine, but you have to release one of them, right? If you want to run, you have to release. So if you, otherwise you will just stay stuck, you know, so 3 feet or something have to remove, and you may be staying on 1 foot so that you don't fall down, and then the 3 have to move, right, forward. So I mean, I mean, if you think about it, it's all amazing mechanisms that are worked. And I have not even started talking about the human body. If you talk about the human body, that will blow you away, okay? Just to take the simplest example, your heart is a pump, okay? It's a pump that is continuously pumping. The day you are born, no, sorry, not the day you are born. From the womb, okay, maybe when you are 3 months, it starts pumping blood, okay? And it doesn't rest for a single fraction of a second. It is pumping blood throughout. I mean, you know, so all the impure blood, I mean, all the details I have forgotten. I'm not a biologist, so, but I'm just telling you because whatever I remember. So it is, you know, the impure blood comes in, it is purifying that, and then again it is pumping the pure blood back into the thing. Then not just that, it is growing, right? The heart is also growing, right? When as you grow, the heart is growing. So actually what happens is that all the cells in your body are replaced every few years. Again, all the details I don't know. You can check this out. So actually you are getting a new body so not many people may know this. You are getting a new body essentially. Yeah, but your experiences, all like what he mentioned, the spirit, that remains, right? So your experiences remain with you, but your body is actually new. So it's regenerating. All the old cells are going and new cells are forming in its place, and your whole body is regenerating, okay? So, I mean, so I prepared a big list of, you know, many examples, but I think, you know, so, and let's not even talk about the brain now, right? So the brain, what is memory, right? Finally, what is memory? So if I take a glue and then if I stick 2 pieces of, then okay, one piece of paper is sticking to another. But in memory, what is happening? It's a thought which is sticking. I mean, it's like as if it is sticking to your brain, correct? So I can recall what happened to me 10 years ago. If it's a very powerful experience, you know, some very bad experience or very good experience, whatever it is. So what happened to me 20 years ago, you'll remember. You may not remember what you wore 3 days ago, right? So it is all, you know, so basically whatever is priority or whatever you rerun, that gets stuck to your memory. But other things, they go away, they fade away, like whatever has happened 1 year, 2 years ago. It's such a complicated mechanism. We do not even understand what is sleep, right? Because sleep is like death. I mean, in the sense you are not dead, but it is like, you know, temporarily your brain is not functioning. But when you wake up, then suddenly you are back. Like, okay, now I remember what I did yesterday, and whatever knowledge that you have, you still now remember everything, right? You have learned your subjects, whatever it is, electrical engineering, mechanical, or your doctors, or whatever you are, you remember that, right? So it's temporarily, it is lapsing. Now suddenly it is picking up again, right? From the time when it left off, now again it is picking up, right? So, I mean, as I said that I can go on and on. But let me just you know, stop here. But yeah, but anyway, let me continue because I mean I'll just finish the no because or let me, yeah, fine. Okay.
I mean, definitely we'd love to hear more. I mean,
Yes.
we are on a journey through the entire ecological system of the
Right,
globe.
yeah, right.
We have traveled from deep seas to
To the
sea slugs
slugs,
to
right.
human
To
body
what
to
is your-
the tiles of your home.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So I wanted to talk about Darwin's theory of evolution, but okay, but I think, I mean, let's come back to that. So.
I just have one question in connection to this. We are going closer to, we are seeing how spirituality can lead to science and science can lead to spirituality.
Yes.
But any good philosophical thought has, even Indian philosophical thought, has encouraged seeing the differences and the boundaries as well. So I have an open question to the entire panel. I would prefer all of you sharing a few points, maybe 1 or 2 points, as to is there a boundary between science and spirituality? And as they are, I get this question because when Dr. Jog was describing about the entire system, the ecological changes, about the plants and all of it, because we see science is a different body of knowledge, spirituality is a different body of knowledge, they have their own definitions. We also have different thought patterns when we are into science and when we are into spirituality, or so I assume. And there are set of experiences that come by. So is there a boundary between science and spirituality, and what's that boundary? Could we draw it up like the line of control that we have between countries? It's an open question to the entire panel. We'd like...
So I guess I have certain examples when I talk of healthcare and wellness, how the science is advancing. And there, as we go through certain research findings, I would like the audience and everybody present here to decide whether this is converging or it is independent of each other, they are coherent or they are now integrating. So instead of putting my thoughts, I would like to take the audience through, but I guess before that we'll hear from the other speakers. And I guess that will take a little longer, though lesser time than what Professor Jog took, but I so I would appreciate the inputs from other speakers, and then probably in the meantime I'll set up so that we can go through the examples. Thank you.
This is the way the Vedic literatures look at. There is a visible, palpable reality around us. And it's our human intellect, human brain, which is trying to understand the laws of nature and so on. Actually, one thought comes to mind, one question comes to my mind. This was a question raised by Professor Carl Sagan. And he asks a question that if you see human beings are intelligent, we understand so many things, and that's how science and technology has evolved and developed. He asks one very interesting question. Does human cognitive abilities permit human beings to understand all of reality, or is there a limit? I'll give an example. Take, for instance, a chimpanzee, which is, according to Darwin's evolution, it's very close to human evolution. And it has a nervous system, it has a brain, it has got left hemisphere, right hemisphere, very much like a human brain. Now, if I were to have a chimpanzee and try to explain to the chimpanzee how our political system works in our country or in other countries of the world, there is an election every few years, and a president or a prime minister gets elected, and all the people vote. The chimpanzee has no ability to understand that. Or you have a dog or a cat in your house, you try to explain to the dog how different things work in this world. They cannot understand. Their brains don't have the cognitive ability to understand these things. there is a limit. Although they have a brain, nervous system which is pretty developed, evolved like a human brain, nervous system, somehow there is a limit and they cannot understand. Now we have also a similar apparatus, the nervous system, with which we do our thinking and analysis. Now, is there a limit to our cognitive abilities beyond which even we are not able to understand some things? This is an interesting question he raises. In fact, the Vedic literatures say, yes, there is a limit to human cognitive powers. There are many other aspects of reality which human beings cannot understand. Another example that comes to my mind is another example given by Professor Charles Townes, who was the inventor of the laser beam. He gives one example to show that how science has a limitation, and there are many things about reality of the world which we perceive, which somehow science cannot comprehend or cannot understand. He gives a simple example. Suppose there is a country with 1,000 people. It's a population, it's an imaginary country which has got 1,000 population. And if you see the resources that are there in the country, whether it's healthcare resources, education, housing, good roads, the country has enough and good resources for 900 people only. And because there is 1,000 population, so there is always a little bit of a struggle and suffering, and some people are not having all the resources and good life, good quality of life, and so on. Now, what is the solution for this? If you strictly look for a scientific solution, the simple scientific solution is you just get rid of 100 people, then everybody will have all the good resources and good quality of life. This is a scientific solution. But can we ever implement this? It will run into dozens of ethical and so many other questions. How do we decide who are the 100 people who are going to be eliminated? Can we eliminate the 100 people? And so on. So you come into certain areas which are outside the domain of science but are very real. So he says that science has a limitation and it can work within a certain domain very well. Now, if there are certain aspects of reality outside that domain, science has no powers to investigate that and understand that. You need probably some other methodology, some other aspect of knowledge system to understand that. So there are many scientists who recognize that there is a boundary, there is a limit within which science can work, and beyond that you need certain other things to understand and investigate. So this is very true in our Vedic understanding that yes, with our senses, with our mind, with our intelligence, with logic, there is a certain limit and there is a certain reality outside of that. You need other methods of knowledge systems to understand that. So very clearly we see that there is a limit to science and you need other methods of knowledge systems.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. On the similar lines, I would like to go into, would there be a point where we advance so much in science and scientific research, or the other way around, spirituality is going to complement or converge with science? Is there going to be a point where science and spirituality are going to meet? And it's like two people meeting in a cafe, so are people going to meet? Is it going to happen sometime? So I'd like to ask Dr. Hema about this.
I guess a very interesting question. And I'm sure many of us are looking forward that with the advancement of science, where is it reaching? What's the final limit? And is there a point where these two will meet? So far, I would say the scientific research findings about life, it has remained fragmented. Why? Because a physicist will have his own view about science. A biologist will have his own view. Similar is with a psychologist, similar is with a genetic engineer. So when it comes to the question about life, there are fragmented and varied views. And so far, scientists, they were from different disciplines, they were finding it difficult to communicate this to each other. However, now there is a slight paradigm shift where all these disciplines are coming together to give a holistic view about science. So whether they will converge, whether they'll meet or not meet, I guess we'll take a quick sneak peek through, what are the basics. Let's understand, though Chanchalapathi Prabhu has explained that in much detail. But let's, it's always said if a scientist is not able to explain the things in the simplest way, he has actually not understood about the subject. So I'll try and oversimplify because I understand there are many engineers sitting out here, but I coming from the biology background, I have tried to oversimplify certain things which are happening and certain advancements in the research. And let's see whether they are meeting or not meeting. So again, starting with the basics. From where does this word science come? It comes from a Latin word, which is scientia. And scientia means knowledge. The Sanskrit derivative of that is vigyan. Gyan, we all know, it's knowledge, but what does that V stands for? The V is derived from vikas or vistrit. Vikas is progressive and vistrit is something which is vast. So it is considered as vast and progressive knowledge. Coming to spirit, it is again derived from the Latin word spiritus. And spiritus means to breathe. And here it means life. Again, the Sanskrit derivation is adhyatmik gyan. So adhyatmik is again made up of two words. One is adhi and one is atmik. Adhi means that is something inside, and atmik, which is related to soul. Now, on the slide, these two look distinctly wide apart. However, the bridge which fills this gap is that both are endeavoring to know the truth. Whether it is science or it is spirituality, both the final endeavor is to know the truth. And when we talk about the truth, science again, as Professor Jog, in detail, he discussed that we are dealing with dead matter. So this is more about matter and material aspects, whereas spirituality is beyond matter. So it is transcendental. Going forward, both are motivated by curiosity. Both are motivated with the problem-solving approach and prediction. Even science likes to predict, and spirituality has a lot of predictions. So this is to deal more with the why, what, how, when, and where of the subject. Science more about what's in the body, what's outside the body, how every cell is programmed, how it is working, how is the functioning of environment around us, problems of pollution that we only have introduced, but now we are trying to find solution for it, and the other life forms, which includes everything, which is animals, microorganisms, birds, flies, trees, everything. And then the bigger aspect, which is the planets and the constellation. So it's not only in what synchrony it's existing in the universe, but how even these planets are affecting our life. That is where we start discussing the Shani and Mangal of our horoscope, that when am I going to get a job? When am I going to get the next promotion? Spirituality is again the bigger question. Who am I finally? If this body is dead matter, then who am I? Who is God? And then finally, what is the purpose of this life? So if I have to oversimplify this, I would say science deals with relativity. That means as you change the frame of reference, the change also takes place. And serendipity, that is chance discovery. We were not planning to do that, we were not planning to find the solution for it, but we bump into it. And the biggest examples have been penicillin from Alexander Fleming and microwave, which is now there in every household by Percy Spencer. There are very interesting stories behind it, but I guess in the best interest of the time, I'll stick to this much fact. Coming to spirituality, it deals with the entirety of the subject. Matter, beyond matter, quasi-matter, what is beyond this universe. And this is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Shri Krishna says that I am the source of all the spiritual and material worlds, and everything emanates from me. Further, spirituality deals with the eternity, that is the permanent side of life. This again is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita very clearly, that never was there a time when we did not exist. I have oversimplified this, so you're seeing those dots in between. And nor in the future shall any of us cease. And further it talks about the physico-chemical characterization of soul. So soul remains unchangeable, eternal, everlasting, unmutable, inconceivable, and invisible. So as Chanchalapathi Prabhu was also pointing that there is, the method of knowing the facts in science is slightly different. We love to believe only when we see something. So it's by the method of observation, exploration, investigation, or experimentation. When we get that data, when we get those scans, when we get those images, when we get those graphs, then we tend to believe. Whereas in spirituality, the knowledge flows through disciplic succession, which is, to understand simply, it is through Guru Parampara. However, here, belief comes first. That means the faith comes first, and as you move forward, the truth gets revealed. So the difference is one is the bottom-up approach, that keep doing experiments till you reach to the truth. And second is, the truth is already flowing down from generation to generation if you don't mutate it in between. So these are the two different approaches. Now coming to what's happening when we talk of advancement in research. And these are the few excerpts which I have taken from different scientific publications. And again, I have put it in very, very oversimplified way so that we all can connect with it. First is, there is rhythm in the brain, mind, heart, and emotions. This has been now accepted by mainstream science. Further, there is now substantial research to show that there is interconnectedness of these rhythms. Now something more interesting. What happens if we change this rhythm? If we change this rhythm, it has the capability to modulate the functions of respiratory, cardiovascular, and neurological systems, which again in physical parameters, because we should be able to measure this. So in physical terms, it means parameters like body temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, rate of breathing, and brain EEG. Everything can be changed if we just change the rhythm of this. Now this is another interesting finding, which says that it suggests that there is an existence of a subtle biofield information processing system, and that is involved in the regulation of biological functions from molecular level to organism level. And further, this rhythm can modulate even the gene expressions. But how does this modulation happen? It can happen through culture, ritual, and spiritual life. Now what I want the audience to concentrate here is, this was never the vocabulary of mainstream science. We are talking about the subtle nature. We are talking about culture, ritual, and spiritual life impacting the genetic coding. So this is something where we see spirituality slowly creeping in. Further, the research shows that if a person is exposed to persistent negative emotional experiences in life, it increases one's likelihood of acquiring common cold, viral infections, yeast infestations, hypersensitivities, heart attacks, and high blood pressure. Again, if we have to just sum it up in one sentence, it means if you are exposed to a lot of negative emotional experiences in life, the immunity of the body goes down. So what is the solution? There is most benefit from classical and meditation music on health and on the intensive care patient that is seen now. Whereas heavy metal or techno music are ineffective or even dangerous. So this is what I would like to discuss a little bit, or I would like to elaborate a little bit, that today we have this culture of, work hard and party harder. So the moment it is Friday evening and all the pubs and the clubs and the discotheques, everything is full. And we feel that probably this approach of exposing ourselves to very high metal and techno music, it will reduce our stress. But it doesn't happen that way. And we have now medical findings which tell us that it's not only ineffective, but it is even dangerous.
I think a lot of pub owners are going to be sad about this research paper.
So no, I'm not against that business. However, this is a finding. Further, so the traditional music, it can be utilized as an effective intervention in patients with cardiovascular disturbances, pain, and intensive care medicine. This was never the case where we'll find any place for such therapies or such propositions in intensive care medicine, which is now a part. What I want you to understand is that, was this something new to us? Did we not know about this? Again, I would like the audience to think about it. I don't want to impose any thoughts, but this is where it is. Moving forward, studies show that spiritual experiences, they can moderate the effects of stress on mental health, which means there is decreased activity in the parts of the human brain which is responsible for stress, and there is increased activity in the parts of brain which is responsible for connection with others. So recovery from health issues is seen through community engagements. And I would like you to understand, when we say community engagement, what exactly it means when we discuss spirituality. As there is a sense of union with something outside of oneself. It is not self-centric. You are associating yourself with something which is beyond and bigger than yourself. This is now referred as the neural correlates of spiritual experiences. So if you look at the picture on the right side, which is, these two pictures are of the brain. On right side, it is under the stressed condition, wherein you are seeing a lot of the white space, the white color, and then you are seeing the red color. The white color, it shows the depressed or reduced activity of the thinking part of the brain, which is, and this is, when does this happen? This happens when we are extremely stressed. However, there is heightened activity at the lower part of the brain, which is also called as the reptile brain, and that is responsible for our fight and flight responses. However, when you are exposed to the spiritual experiences, it again regains its original, the way it is designed to work. And the blue part, what you say, is the thinking part, which is almost zero when we are stressed. And the red part at the bottom, which you see, that is the fight and flight response, it almost vanishes when you are surrounded by the right environment. Do you see the highlight here? It's about the spiritual experience, and we are talking about how the brain function can get impacted with this. Again, there is mantra-based meditation. These are more research findings wherein the mantra-based meditation is found to be a promising resource to improve the mental health. Research shows that if Kirtan mantra for 12 minutes a day for 12 weeks, it can alter the plasma blood levels, which is involved in cellular aging. What does this mean? This is actually an internally designed anti-aging therapy for you. And this was associated with improvement in cognitive function, sleep, mood, and quality of life. Going forward, after 8 weeks of Kirtan, the brain scans of the participants, it showed significantly increased cerebral blood flow in several areas. It improved memory, and it reduced the symptoms of depression and chronic pain. Again, is this something new to us, or we lost it somewhere in between? Moving forward, earlier for a doctor to be considered, successful, it was always the number of degrees he had or the number of years of experience which he had to treat a patient. However, now the vital factors which are being considered for treating a patient, it is considered that the doctor should have enough compassion and sensitivity. Now, this was never the consideration earlier. And apart from the physical parameters, like what is your urine report or blood test report, the important thing which has come up is the psycho-spiritual condition of the patient. So these are the new things which are very slowly in the subtle way creeping in the mainstream science. There is greater acceptance of yoga. I guess this is very openly known to all of us. And CAM, that is the complementary and alternative medicine, by the mainstream medical sciences. Not to forget, where was the origination? Who was the master of the yogic sciences? So I guess we need to look at both the aspects and have our own conclusions. Again, an interesting, very interesting finding that when we relate to a person at a very deep level, the activity in our brain, it mirrors theirs. How we have to explain this? Suppose I am talking right now as a speaker, and if any one of you is deeply involved, clear, at a very deeper level involved and very closely listening to whatever I am saying, and if we take a brain fMRI, that is called as the functional magnetic resonance scan, then the image of my brain and the person who is listening to me will be exactly same. This is called as mirroring, and the term for this used is brain coupling or the wireless communication system. Again, let's have a look. Was this not known? What is the way in the disciplic succession the knowledge was passed on? What is Shravanam? And what was the method? What is Shruti? How all this comes. So now these are the new terminologies for the science which always existed with us. Further, do we all know about this? Blood donation? Yes, nothing new. We know about kidney transplants? Nothing unusual. Hair transplant? It's a big business today. Liver transplant? Again, known. Heart transplant? Yes, known. So there's nothing unusual. We all know about this. Let's move forward. Do we know about face transplant? And I'm not talking about the cosmetic or the plastic surgeries here. I'm talking about where a person's significant part of the face is damaged and it is to be replaced from a donor. So this is basically a medical procedure to replace all or a part of a person's face using tissue from a donor. And this involves the transplantation of everything, right from skin to nasal structure, lips, muscles of facial movement, nerves that will provide the sensation on your face, and the bones that support the face. Now, life is more interesting. Do we know this? This is not a science fiction again. It was considered to be science fiction, but no longer now, because there are several experiments which have been done. What is head transplant? Let us consider Mr. X on the left side, whose body is perfectly working. There's no problem with the limbs, the other functions of the body. However, he is brain dead. His brain is not able to operate this body. And then there is Mr. Y on the right side, whose brain is working perfectly fine, but he has a muscle wasting disease, because of which the body is not working. So the body of Mr. X receives the head of Mr. Y. And this is grafted. Now, this is more interesting as we go further. Brain transplant or the whole body transplant. When we take off brain transplant, it is slightly different from head transplant. Here you just open the head of the person whose brain is malfunctioning and replace it with the brain of another person, so that there is structurally from outside there is no disconnect with the spinal cord. The connection with the spinal cord remains the same, however the brain gets replaced. And why this is called as whole body transplant? There is a whole lot of discussion happening in the scientific fraternity for this. And can you guess why this discussion? Sorry? No, I am not talking of even the technicality of the surgery. Technicality of the surgery, I'm sure the surgeons will be able to find a way. The bigger question is, what is the identity of the new person? Is it, do I say it is new Mr. X, or it is new Mr. Y, or it is XY, or it is YX? How do we say that? The person says that I had a body which was perfectly working fine, and I have just taken the brain. So it is as good as I have taken kidney from someone, I have taken heart from someone. And when we transplant heart, we don't have this identity crisis. But when we are transplanting this, we have identity crisis. And that is where the discussion on consciousness is coming. That where does the consciousness exist? What is that place of the mind for Mr. X and Mr. Y? And finally, what is it that is coming up? We don't have an answer for this today. However, I would like to leave all of you with certain thoughts. Do we know him? Yes? We know the story of his creation, right? Okay. Do we know him? Yeah, it is the person who did the transplant, they both are related to him. One is the son and second is the father-in-law. And this grafting, this transplant was done, I guess, I don't even have the count of time. But I am not drawing any conclusions. I just want all of you to think about it. Have we seen this missile? This was a very famous and popular news in the newspapers for a long time. This is a Hellfire missile, which is slightly different in its design. The missiles are designed that as it engages with the target, it will go and explode. But this was a specific design wherein the blades get deployed just before it engages with the target. It revolves at a high RPM and it actually slices through the target. And this was used to eliminate few extremists in the recent past. And this was considered as a big innovation, and on the grounds of consideration of peace, it was considered that it will prevent the civilian casualties So it is targeted. Again, is this new to us? Yeah? Okay. Moving forward, scientists, they postulate the antibacterial activity of tulsi leaf extract, but what is forward? We all know tulsi has antibacterial effect, but it is basically because of its ability to reduce silver ions to silver nanoparticles. And today this is being considered as an eco-friendly method of biosynthesizing nanoparticles using the tulsi extract. I'm sure you must have imagined what's the next picture that's coming up. Yeah? Did we not know about this? And again, one of my favorite examples which remain from the industry, which I have been always related to. The research analysis shows that milk and dairy products, they are valuable food. They belong to foods with high nutritional density. And all that discussion that vegetarians, they have, lack of vitamin B12 or we are deficient, but it is more because of the eating habits which we have developed. It's not that we didn't have a source. Now there is enough research to support that this is a significant source of calcium, vitamin B12, and even these dairy product ingredients are very well absorbed in the body. So even the bioavailability was never a question. And further it says that the people who are lactose intolerant, because that's the new term and new things which we learn from West, that people who are lactose intolerant, the fermented form of the dairy products, we can take advantage because there is probiotic bacteria present in there. So both considering the people who can tolerate lactose, who cannot tolerate lactose, the design, there was enough science which was there in place and it was taken care that you will never have calcium or B12 deficiency.
I think, I'm not assuming, nor am I concluding, but to me, it's not about two people meeting. It's like science and spirituality are two siblings from the same parent of inquiry. Yes. So, and they're pursuing a single goal. That is the absolute truth. That's what we're looking for.
So the emphasis here is that spirituality was always scientific. We were not able to see it till off late, that's different. And spirituality is always based on science. So any innovations which you are seeing around, please understand, go back to your Vedic text and you will find its roots somewhere therein. So with that, I guess I would like to conclude my answer. Thank you so much.
I think we have wonderful panelists. I'm feeling like I'm going through a library of information, and I do not know how many more questions we can have. We have tried to integrate it. There's one famous question for you, Prabhu, from the audience as well. This has come up 17 times, and this is the data we have. Can faith be reasonable? And they say this, that science needs logic, whereas spirituality is about magic. So can faith be reasonable, and what are your views on these?
Actually, faith is, the way spirituality works, there is an initial faith, a certain amount of initial faith, and then you build on it, and then with the experiences you go through, your faith can increase. Because the famous verse in our scriptures, Adhau Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Atha Bhajana Kriya Atha Anartha Nivritti Syat. Spirituality begins with an initial amount of certain faith or at least an appreciation or an interest. I want to know more. There is some eagerness and curiosity which we heard about. In fact, faith is not, it is not unreasonable to have a faith. I'll give one very practical example. Say for instance, you're trying to search your way to go to some place you want to go. I'm giving an example from the pre-Google days. What we would do, we would ask somebody, and I want to go to this place, and can you please direct? And the person says, okay, you go straight for about 1 kilometer, and you will find a red building on the left side. Take a right turn and travel another kilometer. You will find a blue building there. And then take another turn, and so on. He will describe. Now, what do I do as a practical person? I'll drive for 1 kilometer and see, oh, there is a red building as he told. Now I'll take a right turn and I'll see, oh, there is a blue building here after traveling some distance, as he told. Now, as I traverse, in beginning, what did I do? I put some amount of working faith in what he said. If I tell him, hey, how can I believe you? No, show me that there is a red building, there is a blue building, now, here, now. It's not practical. So I must accept, okay, there seems to be, I can ask a few questions. Where are you from? And if he says, I'm from London, I just landed here now, I may have to doubt what he is saying about the red and the blue building. But if he says, no, don't worry, last 20 years I'm living here, then it's reasonable faith. It's not unreasonable. And then as I go, traverse the distance as he has explained, and I see those symptoms and what he has predicted, and I become more and more convinced about it. And then as my journey progresses, I become more and more convinced about what he said. Here what's actually happening is, I accepted him with a certain amount of reasonable faith, and he made certain predictions. And I saw those predictions unfolding that reinforced my faith. The same thing happens in Vedic methodology of understanding spirituality. You begin with certain amount of working faith, and then you pursue that, and then you see there is a certain prediction made. You get to understand that, and then you do for some more practice. You get some more things that were foretold to you, and that's how your faith continuously builds and increases. And I would think that this is true of not only spirituality, even other aspects of knowledge and human endeavor. Like say for instance, I buy a ticket to go from here to America, and the computer shows that I have to spend 1 lakh rupees, my hard-earned money, and I transfer that 1 lakh rupees from my bank to that whoever that was there on the portal, and they send a mail back to me and say, this is your ticket. And then, hey, you took away 1 lakh rupees from me, and you have just given me another one email. Somebody else could have generated that email and taken away my 1 lakh rupee. But then they will say, no, you take this and show it in the airport on that particular day that is mentioned, and then to the airline, and then it will take you to America. So we have some amount of reasonable faith. We make sure I'm going to the right, site, or right portal or somewhere. I'm not going to some fake portal and lose my money. We make some amount of due diligence and then do this. Or we join a college or a university for a certain course, and the university says after 5 years we are going to award you the degree. You have to go through that study. You must have some amount of reasonable faith. Yeah, there are others who have done that and they have got their degree. So in every branch of knowledge or human endeavor, it begins with a certain amount of reasonable working faith, and that gets reinforced. And same thing happens in spirituality. You don't need something else is going to happen here. So I don't see the approach to spirituality is any less reasonable, rational, scientific than it is to any other system of knowledge or human activity. I would think so.
I'm sure the audience is also thrilled. We've had different visions from biology and from the physics aspect and the ecological aspect. But how many of you actually observed the time? None of us, right? Okay. So due to paucity of time, I want to ask a few concluding questions that could add certain more practical aspects to the lives of all the folks who are present here and all those who have joined us online. So I'd like to ask this to Professor Chandrashekhar here. What would be your concluding statements? Of course, we'd love to have you on the theory of evolution and Darwinism one more time. I think in the future we could have a week-long meet with all different intellectuals and intelligentsia participating in this whole science and spirituality. Today I'd like to ask you, what would be your concluding statements for all the scientific minds?
I forgot one miracle, so I'm going to mention. I can't resist the temptation. So, this miracle is one person called Srinivas Ramanujan. Okay, so just study his life. You know, it's a miracle, really miracle. So I don't know if you have watched the movie The Man Who Knew Infinity, or there are hundreds of books. It's a real miracle. Okay, so it's like again, little bit of a tangent, but sorry. But it's basically, you know, he has grown up in a village where he doesn't have any exposure to any advanced level teaching. Okay, so he's entirely self-taught, and what he does is that he invents all the mathematics that the advanced countries have evolved, you know, single-handedly, okay? And so the mathematics that he's doing is much more advanced. I mean, when he sends his letter to Professor Hardy in Cambridge, he acknowledges that he doesn't even understand many of the results. So some of the results are familiar to him. So like he said, now he develops a little bit of faith that, okay, some of these results I have seen before, but all the others, they look entirely weird. I have no idea whether they are correct or not. And believe me, it has taken a century, okay? So I knew one professor, you know, he has spent his entire life trying to prove his results. And this he achieved before the age of 30. So he died at around 30, 31, something like that, from TB. But, you know, so that is a miracle, because with no tutoring, okay, he is just like a self-taught genius, you know, just, so where do the ideas come from? And we are talking of very advanced number theory, you know, like theory of partitions and things like that, which at that time, even the best mathematicians in the world could not find, you know. So they could not find formulae for the number of partitions and all that. So he did all that single-handedly in some village, Kumbakonam, you know, where he was born. And after that, he traveled to Cambridge and then came up with a lot of inventions and did a lot of work. So people would ask him, I mean, Hardy was an atheist, so he would ask him, you know, that, you know, how do you get these formulae? So he would say, I mean, he himself was not very clear. So he would say one goddess comes to him in his dreams and things like that, you know. So, I mean, so I'm just saying, you know, that, you know, so that is one final, you know, the greatest miracle for me at least, okay. But anyway, so you are coming back to your question. So, well, concluding remarks, okay. So, I mean, I think, you know, all of you are already sort of, it is like preaching to the converted in some sense. So you are already practicing, I'm sure, and reading Srila Prabhupada's books. So
we have a lot of new people today joining us from different fields.
Okay.
We have economics, we have the many first-timers as
well.
No,
no, what I mean is they are already following this path, I'm saying. I'm not talking about the material world now. I'm talking of the spiritual world. They are already following this path. I mean, the fact that they are here and they are coming, or even online who are following us, they are already following this path. So I would just say that be sincere in your effort, you know, it will pay off. That's all. So one thing I would like to say is that just because you begin chanting, don't expect your problems to go away. I mean, that is, I mean, at least in my own life, I have seen that that is not going to happen. And you should not even have that in the back of your mind that it is going to solve your problems. Okay, so this is a process of purification. Remember that. I mean, so this is one of the most important things that I will say, that this whole thing is a process of purification. You know, so basically, spirituality is all about going away from your desires towards some higher realm. Okay, so don't expect that just because you start chanting or just because you start reading the Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, your problems are going to go away. No, that, I mean, that may happen also, but I'm just saying that is, it's not a guarantee. So it's a, you know, you have, like he very rightly mentioned, you have to have an initial amount of faith, and then gradually you progress, and then, you know, gradually you progress in this field, and you know, that is how it happened. But as I said, that finally, the final goal, as Srila Prabhupada would say, is love for God. Okay, so that is a very tall order. So I once mentioned to Prabhuji that I don't feel any love for God. So he gave a very beautiful reply. He said, you don't love God because you don't know Him. You know, that's a very beautiful, it's a very deep reply if you think about it, right? It's yeah, so yeah, so see, you love your mother or you love your kids because you know them, right? And you feel a certain attachment for them. We don't love God because He's removed, you know, He's very far away from us. We are caught up in our own ambitions and you know, all these kind of things. We are caught up in getting higher pay, getting promotions. So God is very far from us. And then no wonder we don't love Him, right? So first step is that at least acknowledge the presence. I mean, that was my motivation, that at least, okay, if you don't love God, that is fine. That will come at some stage. But at least acknowledge, you know. So that actually all these scientific facts that I gave was just to provide this motivation that at least, okay, you know, make a beginning. That okay, if you and if you don't believe in the Shastras, you say no, that is all mythology. I don't believe in it. I am this modern generation. You know, all these Westerners, they are eating non-veg, they are drinking wine, they are getting Nobel prizes, and you know, I'm just sitting here and you know, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita, but I'm not going anywhere. You know, so that is Maya. Okay, so anyway, let me not dive. So that is Maya, right? That is Maya. So yeah, so. So you know, if we try to imitate them, you will not become a Nobel laureate. You will become a first-class monkey. That's what you will become, right? So, yeah. So I'm saying there is no point. That is the reason I gave the example of Srinivas Ramanujan. He was a pure veg. He never drank in his life, and he was one of the greatest geniuses. 100 years have gone by. People are still trying to decipher his results. So don't get trapped by Maya. I mean, so I'm not saying I'm free from Maya. Okay, I am very much trapped. You know, just like you and I. So I'm not pretending that I am a very spiritual person. Okay, I don't want to be. I am zero. Okay, so I agree. I mean, these are the great people. So you take all the advice from them, but at least start. No, just start. So all I'm saying is just start. You know, make a beginning. See, it's very great philosophy that you know. See, Srila Prabhupada was so passionate about it. If you read his books, you know, who will write thousands and thousands of pages saying devotional service, devotional service, devotional service? Who will say that, right? He's trying to drive it into your mind, right? So do that, you know, right? Yeah. So take it seriously, you know, take it seriously. There is a whole lot of truth in it, you know, believe me, there is a whole lot of truth. Lots of inspirations will come into your life. I'm sure you will progress, but have a little bit of patience and be sincere. You know, I mean, don't do it just because you know somebody is saying that. Read the books, your faith will develop. It's a very grand philosophy. So that's all I get. But I mean, for the real guidance, we have to look to these people. They are the really great people. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor. I do want to take up one question, a concluding question also, with Dr. Hema on mental health. You've been an expert in it. You've been part of that field for a long time, over 20 years, being part of the best of the best in the industry. So today we see there is a rise of overthinking, depression, anxiety, and stress. It is said in America about 1 in 6 people are under some form of medication for mental health, and India isn't very far away. Bangalore has more number of psychiatrists and psychologists today. So my first part, of course, again the paucity of time in mind. First part of the question, can you please share how spiritual practices have helped you, and or first of all, do you have a certain set of practices that you have in your day-to-day routine, and what would be some of the tips that you would suggest to all the youngsters here today?
I guess taking forward from what Professor Jog said, we are, probationary devotees. We are not some evolved spiritual people. However, and we are very much in the materialistic world. So one thing, please do not take spiritual life as a therapy to treat your stress and depression, because the benefits are way beyond it. And this is just very small, I would say, glimpse of what it can do to you. Now coming to what we can do in day-to-day life and something, what is it that I am doing? I've tried to relate it with, the teachings which we got when we were very young and we were very small. And one of them was, we were posted to stations where we had sub-zero temperature. So we used to, sleep in the night with a lot of blankets on us. And morning when we were to get out of the blanket, there was always a practice that a shawl or a sweater was kept next to our pillow. And there was an instruction from the parents that wear it and then get out. So till we grew up, we didn't really understand this. But the reason was to prevent the thermoregulatory fluctuations, because your body is at a particular temperature and suddenly you get exposed to something which is extremely low. So there is a high chance that you can fall ill. The similar practice I have extended now to the spiritual side, that wear your armor before you get out of the bed and start battling with the things around, because everything around is materialistic. So at least complete one round of japa before you get out of the bed. So, and it takes only 10 minutes, even if you are very slow at chanting. So it will take only 10 minutes. Second, sound vibration, it has tremendous energy in it. And we have seen how it can, really impact the neural synchrony or the brain function. So take advantage of that sound vibration. Change your vocabulary. Instead of hi bro and bye bro, it can be Hare Krishna, not only in this campus, but outside also. Further, if something goes wrong in life, what is our expression generally when we are out of this campus? Oh? Oh? Don't make me say that word, you all know it. It's oh shit or oh damn. Replace it with Hey Krishna and Hey Ram. And you see the whole vibration, how it changes when you are impacted with negativity or failures in life. Some other small easy tips. You may not have time daily to, cook and offer to God. Just pluck a tulsi leaf, or if you have a fruit in the house, offer it and accept that as prasadam before you move out of the house. There is one practice which was being followed traditionally, and probably I would like to quickly show it, and we followed it without any knowledge. But we followed it for years together, and later we understood the meaning of this. Can we just switch the screen? This is the entrance door of the house where I stay. And on both the sides, you would see the Maha Mantra written. Now, this is nothing new that I have adopted after coming in contact or getting the knowledge. This was a traditional family tradition and a practice which was carried out since ages. And we also, because we were not the rebellious kinds, so we followed this practice. And this, what this Mahamantra means, that I understood now when I started reading Srila Prabhupadaji's book. But the But the reason why this was written, when I tried to, understand that why were we writing this at all from my grandmother. So she said there are two reasons. One, you are not supposed to put your nameplate outside your house because that gives you an ego. So this reminds you always that everything in this world belongs to the Supreme Creator. So this keeps you humble all the time while you're entering the house and while you're going. Now the other thing which I understood and I didn't know that how this can influence others. Now the people staying in my neighborhood, they have started saying that the elevator is just in front of my house. So everyone staying on that floor has to cross my house to reach to the elevator. So they say while we are waiting for the elevator, this is the Maha Mantra which we keep reciting. So, you can impact others by doing very small things, not only in your life, but in others' life. How it will impact, you have no idea. Weekends, you can always go to some spiritually adventurous place. So please don't think that spirituality is boring. Please try the trek at Yamunotri. I don't know if any one of you have been there, and that is one of the most difficult treks. And it is spiritually also enlightening. Second, go to Rishikesh and try the river rafting for 7-8 kilometers. So it gives, and I have done all this, that's why I'm sharing. So spirituality has got nothing to do with the lack of adventure or, lack of happiness. And I guess, last but not the least, I love Bangalore traffic for one reason. I guess chanting is one thing which, yes, I try to finish before I leave the house, but in that traffic, and I really pray at times that let the traffic be a little more and longer. Because that is the time you get to read. That is the time when you get to hear the morning conversations of Srila Prabhupada. And thanks to technology that all this is available at our tips. So I would request just pick up something if this makes sense to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we've had an enlightening discussion, and we've brought in so many wonderful points about faith, being reasonable, about simple spiritual practices. I'm sure now no one can give the excuse of being busy and miss out on the spiritual practices. Thank you very much, and we hope to have more conversations in the future. Now I request His Grace Chanchalapathi Prabhu to do the temple honors. Thank you very much, Prabhu. We thank the dignitaries for taking out time from your busy schedule, being here, bringing out how spirituality isn't very far away, and how both science and spirituality are compatible and form an intrinsic part of every researcher or even scientist's life. So this is a different perspective that we've all received, and I'm sure all the audience are inspired to look into science as well as spirituality. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We will be informing about the further programs in the meanwhile. Yes. I think it's a time for a standing ovation for all the humorous way we have learned the scientific facts. This is the most fun I've had interacting with academicians, researchers, and scientists. So, what's the audience going to say? How was your experience? Okay. We need part 2. Okay, so I think we need a 1 week part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5 to go with the entire subject matter. Hope you found the inspiration. I want to thank the audience as well, because this wouldn't be possible without all your questions being shared with us. We have reframed it. We have utilized that some of you have given wonderful questions. I do apologize if I could not include a few of your questions, or probably most of the questions, because of the paucity of time. But I'm sure most of your questions would be answered by their intellectual prowess and presentation. Is that true? Did you get the answers to the questions you wrote? Okay. So thank you very much. I thank the online viewers as well. I hope you felt thrilled and you experienced great amount of joy in the whole process. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. The next program, we heard about Kirtan, so let's apply a few aspects of what we heard. We're going to join the Kirtan in the main temple hall. So I think a few of you will be informed by our team of operations to stay back. So we have a few more activities here. The remaining members, I request you in an orderly fashion to move towards the main temple hall. Before we go to the main temple hall, we have a small video on the next big festival, Vaikunta Ekadashi. Shri Srinivas Govinda. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Chandra ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. So it's up to the scientifically spiritual and spiritually scientific people to now do what is most important, that is take action. And can we have the link for those who have not registered yet? So you could register right now to Vaikuntha Ekadashi services. Please take out some 5 minutes. As you can see, the benefits are immense, and it's one day in a year. So and this time we are fortunate, it's very close to New Year. It's just one day after New Year, so it's the 3rd. So please take this opportunity. Please visit this link right now.